Good morning. I'd like to welcome back all of our followers and watchers to this episode of Patient Conversations with Leah. Today, I'm excited to introduce Ashely to you, who was recently diagnosed with non-small cell lung cancer with an oncogene mutation. And I am going to turn it over to her just to tell a little bit about her diagnosis and kind of what the last several months have been like for her.
Thank you, Leah. So I was diagnosed with stage 1 non-small cell lung cancer in September. The path to diagnosis was unique from what I see out there in that I got the diagnosis really early. How I got the diagnosis was there was actually a lump on my chest wall that I found in July. No one was concerned about this lump. They thought it was just nothing. And they even said I could go to a dermatologist if I wanted and just get it removed. But when I was at the OB and they were looking at that lump, they found another lump in my breast, and they thought because of that, like, let's get you scheduled for breast MRI and a mammogram. So I went to that appointment, and then that's when I saw the faces and everyone looking alarmist. All of a sudden, this lump on my chest wall didn't look normal, and they said that I needed to get it biopsied. Long story short, they wanted me to go back to the breast cancer center to get it biopsied, which felt really weird to me because it was on my rib cage and everyone said it wouldn't be breast cancer if it was cancer. So I pushed back, but they pushed back. So I went for the biopsy and I got a different doctor the day of the biopsy. I was on the table getting ready to be biopsied, and I said, I just don't understand why I'm getting a biopsy at a breast cancer center. And she paused and listened to me, made a call to a doctor, was gone for like a half hour, came back and said, you're right, I shouldn't biopsy this. I called a specialist and they think you should go to a sarcoma clinic because if it was cancer, it would be a soft tissue cancer. Because of that, we didn't biopsy that day, and I was referred to a sarcoma specialist who ordered a CT of my chest. That CT of my chest showed a nodule in my lung. And for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, they thought I had metastatic sarcoma. And they ordered a biopsy of the lung nodule and the chest wall mass. And then that's when I threw everyone for a loop, and the chest wall mass ended up being benign. And then there was another waiting game of trying to figure out, is that primary lung cancer? Because they weren't looking for lung cancer. They didn't stain it with pathology to be looked for lung cancer. So they had to restain the biopsy. They weren't sure if they'd have to get more tissue. And then they did a PET scan and other tests to make sure I didn't have another primary cancer. Then finally we got the diagnosis of primary stage 1 lung cancer. And that's when I met with a thoracic surgeon. I actually met with 2 just to get a second opinion. And that's when they told me that they would treat me with a left lower lobectomy, which I had in October.
So that is a lot. I'm sure you were not expecting anything like lung cancer from a spot on your chest wall. So I'm sure or I'm thinking, at least for me, you're younger than I am. You're 38, correct?
Yeah, 38.
So even then, you hadn't started having regular mammograms. So all of this was probably swimming through your head of like, what is this? What could this be? You kind of went on a roller coaster of, could it be breast cancer? Could it be sarcoma? Oh, now it's lung cancer. So just like explain to me kind of how you were feeling when you eventually heard lung cancer. What came into your mind? Because lung cancer was not something you'd ever really thought of.
It was a shock. I knew nothing about lung cancer. You hear about breast cancer all the time. And so that like made more sense to me. It didn't make it less scary, but at least it was something I knew about. When I was spending those couple weeks thinking I had metastatic sarcoma, that was also, I had never really heard about sarcoma and metastatic, of course. How I got some of these test results too, I mean, it's making such a long story short, but I got test results just dropped to me in a text message, new test result. And I open it up and it says this lump or this nodule is likely malignant. And I'm just sitting at home with my 3 and 5-year-old and I'm reading this. Like, I mean, and the, and then, my family went through this roller coaster with me. And so they had feelings about all of this as well that I think were hard, because when everyone found out I had stage 1 lung cancer, they were like, I don't want to say celebrating, but they were very happy that I didn't have stage 4 sarcoma, but I wasn't there with them. Like, I wanted to be upset about having lung cancer at 38. So it was very hard for me. And then I felt bad when I learned more about lung cancer, how lucky I was, because there aren't a lot of me out there. So, and even like, the doctors, the thoracic surgeon, like, I've learned so much from you guys here, but they didn't think I needed gene mutation testing, or even I was not referred to an oncologist until I pushed for it. So the whole thing is just so much to manage and process. And if I'm being honest, I'm still processing it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the roller coaster that you've been on, all the different information, and you're an educated young person. I'm sure you were doing like all of us do, and you did a deep dive into sarcoma, then you did a deep dive into lung cancer, and it's just very
Actually, my
overwhelming.
sister did all the deep dives for me.
That's a good sister.
I can't. One thing I've learned about myself is I can't Google anything. So I really hate that I have to be this expert now. I have to be honest. I hate it. Like, I want the doctors to be the experts, and I'm I don't have anything ill to say about a single, nurse practitioner, PA, surgeon, oncologist that I spoke to. They're all lovely, but like, at the end of the day, I've had to advocate almost with everyone for something.
Yeah, that is, I think, the path that most of us have found ourselves in. And I was talking to someone yesterday, and I said, we're at a different spot now. Lung cancer was so gloom and doom even 10 years ago, 7 years ago, that patients weren't living long enough to get involved in researching and getting second opinions and all of the things. So I think now that we are living longer, people are being diagnosed earlier, in some cases, like yourself. And it's a gift to us, really, that we have this time to do these kind of deep dives, and then educating the other patients and even doctors and nurses and everyone else. So in your journey, I know you said that you had a lobectomy. So after you had your lobectomy, kind of what how did the oncologist explain to you that you would monitor your lung cancer, being that since it was your primary tumor was in the lung, and the lobe was removed? For the listeners out there, explain kind of what that means as you travel along your journey. Are you cancer free? Are you in remission? What is kind of your process now?
Yeah, so I'm still like getting a second opinion on that, like even this week. But um, thoracic surgery told me that the standard of care for the size of my nodule was a lobectomy, and that I would be monitored by scans for 5 years, so CT scans of my chest, and 6 months every 6 months for the first 2 years, and then annually up to 5. I did seek a second opinion that said that would maybe change in her opinion, and I would maybe continue to get scans after 5 years as well. But I actually wasn't referred to oncology. They considered it a second opinion that I asked to speak to an oncologist. And the oncologist is the one who ordered my gene mutation testing. And I got a test result back on Monday, but it hasn't been read to me yet. But it's the one that looks to see if there's any circulating cancer DNA in my blood. So I'm just like waiting for someone to call and tell me. But I mailed all of my information to University of Colorado as well, because that's where the ROS1 specialist is that I learned from you guys. So I don't know, but right now everyone's telling me scans are the likely option for like monitoring this, but there are some clinical studies looking at different medications for ROS1 mutation in earlier stages, but I have stage 1A. So I
Okay.
got the luckiest
Lucky.
diagnosis. Yeah, I know. I have to put it in quotes because I hate this like idea that I got
Lucky.
lucky.
Yeah, I was told when I was first diagnosed, when they called to tell me my biomarker was EGFR, the oncologist said, "Well, you just won the lung cancer lottery." And I'm like, "Well,
The
if this is the
lottery no one
prize,
buys a ticket for.
right? If this is the prize, I want out of this lottery." Like, but yeah, so I totally understand that. So, how are you feeling? Like physically, emotionally, mentally is different, but like your
Yeah.
physical self.
Yeah, physically, like I think a lot of the procedure surprised me. I mean, like I said, I couldn't be on Google, so I thought a lobectomy, like I thought they were taking my lung out from the front, and then I had all these incisions in the back. And I got that lump that started this whole journey on my chest wall removed as well. So it was difficult recovery because I had an incision on this side and I have 4 incisions on this side and a chest tube incision. So I have a ton of incisions. The first week was awful. Like, like any surgery probably is. And then things got better. I was like able to walk and I was surprising. Like I could go up the stairs and things like that without being very short of breath. It wasn't until I tried to reincorporate exercise that I actually really saw the reduction in lung capacity. So I lost 30% of my lung capacity because the left lower lobe is like the largest lobe. But I've seen it regain. Like it's cool to see the progression. The first time I tried to pick up weights, I like to do strength training. The first time I tried to pick up weights, I was totally winded. My heart rate was like through the roof. And now I can do things that I was doing pre-surgery, which I mean, 3 months post-op is pretty cool that I can do that. I do feel numbness around some of the incision sites, and it's weird. It's a weird feeling, but I'll take it over throbbing pain, which I was told might happen. And then I feel stuck on my bigger incision where they pulled out the lobe. So I'm gonna start some PT for some scar massage.
Well, I think that's pretty amazing because I'm in the phase. I also had a lobectomy, but I'm in the phase of everything still hurts a little bit, not a
Yeah.
lot. Like my main incision does not so much hurt, but like where my chest tube was is still sensitive, still having a little nerve pain. But my biggest thing I've noticed is I felt like, or I feel like, that the shortness of breath has gotten worse the further I'm out, and not resting, but when I'm trying to trying to reintroduce
Yeah.
exercising and whatnot. And it was very scary and also kind of deflating when you're like, oh, they said I can exercise and now I'm picking up a 10-pound weight, which before I was using a 20-pound weight. And I'm like, and my heart rate's going and I'm like, is this normal? So I'm glad to hear it gets better,
Yeah.
improves. Um,
I took a picture, I remember, of my Apple Watch the first time I walked on a treadmill at like a 3.2 pace, and it was like 160. And I was like, whoa.
I know. And then you get those alerts on like your heart rate's high and you're like, oh gosh, like,
Yeah.
yeah, I get it. Well, I really, really appreciate you sharing your stage 1 diagnosis with us because, like you said, not many people are diagnosed stage 1, especially those of us that are younger that don't qualify for the pre-screening, the early detection screening. So I think this is good for people to hear because everybody's story is a little different, every journey is a little different, and stage 1 is just as scary as a stage 2, 3, or 4 diagnosis because each person, your health and your mortality is all wrapped up into it. So I do appreciate that. I'm excited to say we are going to do a part 2 with you. So I hope our viewers will tune into that. I think we're going to focus more on like kind of the mental aspect, emotional aspect of the diagnosis for our next conversations. So thank you very much for being here this morning. I know all of us have learned a little bit more about lung cancer and especially a stage 1 diagnosis.
Thank you.